Okay.
And I couldn't scarf up a minute somebody to take the minutes tonight. I feel terrible about that, but I know Wendy came and did it last time, and I know some of you had some suggestions, but nobody ever said anything to me. So,
Christine, you couldn't find anyone?
No, I haven't asked him yet. It just slipped off my radar. So
No, that's okay.
I'll text him,
Wendy,
David.
hold on. Wendy just
She's
texted
here.
me.
Good. Okay.
Oh, just left.
Ah, Wendy, what a lifesaver. There she is. That's good. Yeah, well, I just assumed you were out of it, but that's great. Thank you very much.
Wendy, we're so happy you're here. Beth is particularly happy. Okay, so call this meeting to order at 6:05. And we have no public today. Is that the case? That appears to be the case.
That's why Sarah was wondering about the link.
Yeah. Nope. I definitely use the agenda, not the calendar.
It might get busy around the holidays.
Yeah. Okay, so approval of the minutes. Did everybody get a chance to read them? Okay. Okay. Does anybody have a motion?
I motion to accept the minutes. That's Beth.
Beth, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
I'll second.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Scott.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any discussion with the minutes? There was. I actually had something and now I don't have it up.
I'll start because I had something really
Okay.
minor. Really
Okay.
minor, probably nitpicking. The at the top where it says somebody was a little late. I don't know. That's just a degree of information that maybe doesn't need to be there.
Yeah.
Scratch it.
Okay.
I mean, I'm talking about because we're in an evolution of minute protocol now, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
So as long as we're here is okay with me.
Yeah,
And
I agree with that.
how would you like me to? The reason why I put that there is because the initial vote was a 4-0, and then the others will be 5-0. So, do you want me to put their individual names, or how would I? I don't know if you care about discerning who was missing for that initial vote.
You could just say you could leave it as Colleen was absent, but then as long as she's in attendance up above.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Connie was absent for this vote. Maybe that's
Okay. Yeah, I'll put it
What did
down.
we
in the
vote on?
minutes.
The
Gotcha.
minutes?
Okay,
Awesome.
I'm okay. Yep.
Thank you.
Hi, sorry.
And I guess in the anti-racism task force update, and the last note is it was noted that there's some level of white supremacy in our boards. I felt like that statement was strong, but I don't have another one. And I think that would have come from either me or Colleen or Christine, because we were the only ones that are on the task force. Do you guys have a suggestion on how to edit that?
Well, I think board culture is ultimately is white supremacist kind of culture in some ways.
Yeah.
So it's more of a culture issue in that way versus the board is not white supremacist, but the inherent culture or the inherent structure of boards tend to be.
Yes. Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yes. Thank you, Beth. And I do remember you were the one that made that
Maybe that's why.
comment. Yes. So
I spend a lot of time on them.
Wendy, do you mind changing it to, it was noted that there's some level of white supremacy in the culture of our boards?
Or how about based on the inherent structure of our boards, there's some level of white supremacy. How's that?
Bingo.
Did
Perfect.
it. Done.
Even better. Thank you. Nice job. Okay. Awesome. That was all I saw. Scott, you have something else?
Yeah, not something else. I'm just trying to understand that because I'm interested in what Beth is saying. So are you saying, Beth, that it's been your experience or your belief that I don't know what you'd call public boards in general tend to be that way, or our board?
The structure of having a board and the people that are usually on boards and the people that are usually holding the power and things like that are usually white and usually upper class. And so the way boards function and the way the rules, Robert's rules and these kinds of things are not always inviting for BIPOC communities.
Absolutely. And that's a good that you brought up Robert's rules, because who came up with Robert's rules?
Well, I get to say white man.
I think that's a good discussion. I'm just sticking on this point because we were adjusting the minutes and we still left the word "our" in there. And is it fair to? Well, I guess you could leave it in there because our board is a public board. So either way.
Yeah.
Would you prefer the word just be school boards?
Public board or
I'm okay with, I mean, not, yeah,
okay.
I'm okay with our board. I don't know.
Okay.
Sarah,
Yeah.
do you have half our hand raised?
Yeah, it just occurred to me. I didn't think of it until this moment, but it just occurred to me that is there a difference between capitalizing white supremacy and not capitalizing white supremacy? I you know, when I see white supremacy capitalized, I think of it in terms of organized white supremacist movements and organizations. And I you know, I mean, I want to acknowledge any any level of it that we have here in our board. I want to be absolutely open and transparent, but I wonder if lowercase white supremacy might be more in line with what Beth is talking about, but I don't want to put words in your mouth, Beth, either.
No, you're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And supremacy is a strong word. I mean, it really is. I mean, I don't know whether you want to consider white privilege or would you, or do you want to stay with white supremacy? That's a
I don't
strong
have a problem with it, but that's,
Yeah.
it is, I mean, it's an uncomfortable word and I'm okay with that uncomfort.
That's
But
Yeah.
Wendy, I just,
I'm fine with it.
I see what you're saying, David, but I guess I'm okay with it.
yeah, no, if you're okay with it, that's fine.
And the word "our," I'm okay with that too.
Wendy, I did want to say that I love these minutes. and so far I have loved your minutes. They are just concise and capture exactly what's happening without too much extra. And so while we nitpicked one sentence, overall, these are
I don't take
fantastic.
it personally. This is your board, so I want it to reflect what you want it to reflect. So
Yeah.
it's not personal. I don't take it that way.
Okay, good. Well, I did want to say to you directly, though, that these are just fantastic. They're so easy to read. They help you remember the meeting, and they convey exactly what happened. So, perfect. Okay, is there any further discussion? No, so we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of approving the October 19th, 2020 minutes, please signify by saying aye or waving a hand. Aye. Okay, that was 5 to, well, any abstains? There's nobody left. So that would be 5 to 0. Okay. I saw some, David, you're presenting.
I just
Okay.
want everybody to see the agenda.
Okay. So Ed, are you on the call digitally and on the phone, or is there somebody else on the phone?
Me, it's Ed.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay. Just trying to understand if we have public here or not, and I know that you frequently call in, so okay. So Ed, you're here. Should we rearrange the let's look at rearranging the agenda. We'll put, is everybody okay if we put Ed first?
Sure.
Sure.
Works.
Okay. That would be the budget first.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I just checking my mic. Sorry.
Okay. Yep.
I
Go
wasn't
for it.
sure.
Okay, so so we'll do the budget first. And then we'll go through everything else in order, except I'm going to move the strategic plan to last. So. Okay. And then there is a tentative executive session was warned, and we're gonna have an executive session as it relates to budget planning for next year. So that will happen. Okay. Ed, you're up.
It's I'm going to present actually.
Oh,
And then
yeah, Christine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've been working with Christine for the
Yeah.
last 2 weeks, and she just asked me to be here, kind of in case some question came up. So with that, I'll turn it over to Christine.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you, Christine.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so you're the one that asked for the executive session. You're good with some presentation, and then
Yeah, I'm going to present.
And
I think
I'm going to stop.
David, you got to stop presenting.
I'm going
Yeah.
to stop presenting. Yeah, hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm just trying to get to where I got to get.
All right. Take your time.
Then we can stop presenting. How about that?
Good. And I'll present. And I'll just start by saying Ed's been a wonderful partner in budget planning. He's been slowly training me in e-finance, which I appreciate. Knowing how to find answers without having to bug him. I don't know if he appreciates that or not, but so we've been working together, and he's here to answer questions that are far beyond my budget knowledge. So let me just present. And can everyone see the screen?
yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Does it look like it's scrolling in?
Not yet, but it will.
Okay. Just let me know. I'll try again if I need to.
I wonder, I don't have to give you permission, right? No.
I don't know.
Christine looks frozen. I wonder if that is. what
Oh,
happened.
yeah, she does.
You
Okay,
want to sign back in, Christine?
let me just exit presenting. Hold on. Okay, let me try again. Am I unfrozen now?
Yeah, now you're
Yeah,
on.
yes.
Okay, let me try again. Share.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Okay, you can see it now?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, good. Okay. All right, so this is our preliminary proposed budget.
Actually, you're on your home
Actually,
screen.
no, I can't see.
Can't see the budget? What do you
Am I
see?
the only one? I'm seeing like a blurry version of my screen.
Oh, hold on, maybe blur is still on. Hold on one second. Let
Yeah.
me just go back here.
Or go, there you
There it is. There it is. Oh, now it's gone.
No, yeah, no, blur. I have to turn the blur off. Hold on. If I can.
You got to show me how to do that too.
I will. Boy, this computer is just, okay, there we go. All right, now,
That's clear. Now we're going to go to your.
now you can see my budget presentation?
No.
Go to that other tab.
Okay, hold on. Now you can see it, right?
Pretty close. Not yet.
All right. Yes?
No,
No?
sorry.
That is, what do you see?
I see a blurry version of all of our faces.
That's,
seeing-
oh,
seeing
hold
you
on a minute, hold on. Let me
Like
just
you're
see.
sharing the wrong screen.
I'm sharing the
Or
wrong
tab.
screen. Yep, I am. Hold on. Let's try that one more time.
You're also frozen again. Oh, now you're not frozen. That's good.
So I'm gonna stop. Oh, sorry about that, guys. Hold on.
You're using your Chromebook, right? Or no?
No, I'm not. I left it at school. I'm using a Mac. Sorry.
That's all right. And if
I'm gonna do,
send it to me and I can share it.
I've
Christine,
done
if you
it.
want, I can just call it up because you emailed it to us.
No,
There
I
it is.
didn't. I didn't email this to you. Do you see it?
Yep. Now we
Okay.
got it.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
I just hit the wrong button. Okay, so this is a proposed FY22 budget, and not knowing what next year's going to be like, it was a difficult task, but I think we've got a pretty good plan. just so you know, the way that eFinance makes us kind of categorize things reflects elementary, which is K-6, secondary is 7-12, and then location-wide is all-encompassing, like art, music, library.
Is that a change again from the previous?
No, last year we were kind of the guinea pig in Ed ran the, we were in eFinance, but we reported out in different ways. So this is, this year we're using eFinance exclusively, but it has been a transition. So these are our estimated enrollment numbers for next year. With home study, without home study students, we're at 254. With home study, I'm not sure all of those will come back or not. Some of them were home study previous to COVID, but we'll see. Not many were. We are enrolling 2 new students at the moment. So I think it's a number that's going to fluctuate. I can say that there are a lot of houses that are selling in Heartland rapidly. So that's just a point in time. Right now, that's what we have, and that's what we're going to base our budget on for the moment. These are our high school numbers as best we can calculate who's going where. You can see a majority of our kids are headed to Hartford again next year, and our Hanover numbers are still falling. So we're graduating 46 seniors, and we're sending 35 8th graders onto high school. And this, I'll share this presentation with you. This is a breakdown of where they are by grade level, which school they're at. And this is really helpful for Ed in kind of estimating high school tuition numbers. All right. So for the budget, I mean, we didn't make a ton of changes this year based on not knowing, where we're going to be next year, what school's going to look like, what state funding is going to come in. But we have reduced supplies by a pretty significant amount. That is, one of the places we have some control in the budget. And the staff is aware that we're going to try to just be really frugal again, make sure we have what we need, but not do any of the extras that we sometimes do. We've reduced 1 regular Ed BI for a total of $17,000 and reduced some, sorry, that's my phone ringing, sorry about that. And reduce some staff training that we had in the budget for this year and we're not able to implement based on COVID. So we're just gonna hold off. And then we are budgeting for a half-time LPN for next year. And I've met with Annette and she thinks that's enough time for an additional nurse support, and that's roughly $12,000. And if COVID has passed, we can reevaluate that later on.
Are there any specific items that in supplies that you took out that were like bigger ticket items or anything?
We adjusted the library schedule, the library budget a little bit. One of the line items for the library in the past has been for Alexandria, which is the library management system used to check out books. And the librarians met with Angie, and she's going to place that in her SU budget because she feels like it's an equity issue. All libraries should be able to have the same access to that system, and that wasn't the case. So that's going to move out of the library budget, and that was a $5,000 item. So it's pretty significant. And other than that, we've just kind of reduced each content area allotment, and then reduced general supplies by a pretty decent amount. I can't tell you off the top of my head what it was, but I'm not concerned about it. I think we're going to be fine. So that being said, I'll move on unless there are other questions. Okay, I can't see you, so just holler if you have questions. So these are the major categories in the budget. Total wages are up a decent amount, and that reflects a 2.5 wage increase and that additional half-time LPN. So nothing major there. Benefits are up 10% at this point. That's the information that Ed has to date, and so he has calculated the increase in premium costs in the FY22 budget. Contracted services, so you'll see there's a pretty significant decrease in FY22, and that is attributed to those professional development opportunities that we were planning to bring in, Big Picture Learning and Leader in Me. It's also where the BI is located in the budget, and there's a building operations reduction of $16,800. You might be wondering why in FY20 it jumped so significantly in FY21, and that's the year we brought on the SRO position. So some of that increase is the SRO position, which is included in the FY22 budget.
So the buildings operations reduction is, is that a change in personnel, or is that?
No, and we didn't look this one up exactly. It's contracted services. So it could have been something that was brought in, some contractor that was brought in to fix something. That would be my guess. And I don't know. Yeah, it's not personnel.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. This is the maintenance and repair budget, and it is also reduced, and maintenance wages are listed under total wages, so you'll see that reflected from previous years. Transportation we've centralized it. I think that's the right way to say it. David, correct me if I'm wrong. So we've moved the local transportation into the SU budget so that we can negotiate a better contract and be able to share services if needed. So in our local budget, we have local, transportation costs, which are field trips. I've spelled them out here: athletics, winter activities, and homeless transportation, which we do sometimes have to reimburse families who are homeless for transporting their children to school if they no longer are on the bus route due to being homeless. Questions on transportation?
Christine?
Yep.
So this is a good example. So the there it is. Okay. So FY22 budgeted Heartland budget for transportation goes way down, but it will show up in our supervisor.
It will. Yes. Yeah.
Right.
It will. Yeah.
You could back up one slide.
Sure.
Can we say the same about the maintenance and repair?
You can.
20 to 21.
It's helped to have some of that centralized.
Yeah.
That's a huge drop from 20 to 21 and even further to 22. I'm not sure. Could you explain that again? I don't understand that quite.
So some of the maintenance wages were centralized, contracted through the SU, and that is the shift that you're seeing from 20 to 21, and then continued as in forward into FY22.
Yeah.
All right. So we did. So communications, insurance, postage pretty much stays the same. We do have a new phone system, and Larry's best estimate is that the cost will increase just a little bit in FY22. This is our high school tuition budget, and you can see that we're sending 11 fewer kids to high school next year, and you would think we would have a very large cost savings. That was my hope, but as you know from last year, we had quite a few move-ins for high school. Heartland's a high school choice town, and that's pretty enticing for families when their kids get to that age. So in FY20, our actual was significantly more than we had budgeted. And so we are, as of today, Ed has included high schoolers that have moved into Heartland this first trimester or semester. He does have those numbers, and so the number reflects how many kids we have in high school. Questions on that? Okay. I don't see, I mean, Ed and I were chatting, and it's hard to budget not knowing how many kids are going to move in, but that seems to be the pattern as of late. People with high school age kids are moving into Heartland. Thought somebody was going to say something.
Well, I'll just kind of flag that as a come back to the board members. Like, do we want to think about adding 2 randomized students to account for some of it? And we gained like 6 this year, though, right? Or was it 10?
I think we gained 9 in FY20. We gained, I know, of 5 this fall, but we lost a couple. So sometimes it balances out and sometimes it doesn't. But
Yeah.
I will say the last 2 conversations I've had were from families that were moving to Heartland for high school choice, buying houses in Heartland for that reason. And so they'll have high schoolers next year that we are not in this budget. So it might not be a bad idea to anticipate that.
It's a hard thing, and I think we used to do it and then we went back to straight budgeting. And so,
Do you remember why you went back?
David Scott, it was before my time, but I feel like it wasn't too far before my time.
And we went back what?
From my understanding is that we used to budget a little extra.
Go ahead, Ed.
So
sounds good, yeah.
Why it was before David's time. It's been a while, and that's because budgets because the budgets were going up at such a rate, they didn't have the luxury of adding that. They had to find somewhere to cut, so they took it out of there, because otherwise, when you had to hit a number for a tax rate or those kind of things, they were having to take it out of K through 8.
Okay.
I was kind of assuming it would be that sort of thing. I'd probably be in that place again where we want to back it back out again at some point. I don't think there's anything wrong with padding in a little extra, but it's probably something we'll take back out at some point when we're trying to make it look better.
Well,
go ahead, Nikki.
Are we carrying a deficit into the 22 budget year, Ed?
We are, I believe, Ed.
Yeah.
Yes, you are. It's $154,000.
154,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like Christine, you also said, I mean, not to hop on this, but this is the second big year for Hartford. I know Hartford's always been a big draw for Heartland. I know that it, historically, if you go way, way back, it was really hard. It was Hartford and Windsor and almost a direct split. But then it started to go Hartford. I mean, what do you think's driving that, Christine? Do you think it's just family tradition that there are so many people that have that? I know also the athletic program.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's both those things. I mean, Hartford's a really good school, and it's, there are staff there that the kids know. That's probably part of it. Good athletics, the tech programs there, parents that have gone there, so their kids are choosing to go there. Sometimes kids go where their friends go or want to go where their friends go. So maybe some of that. I will say that we have done, we had Linda called around because we really wanted to try to get an accurate count. Homeschoolers that might be going to high school, private school, the Waldorf school, just to try to get an accurate number. And Ed's been working with Lori at the SU office on really whoever we have vouchers for, that's what we're budgeting for. So we're trying to get an accurate account.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it is up.
One thing
Sarah has her hand up.
I was just speaking to somebody in the Woodstock district, and they are also struggling with this right now because they've had a lot of move-ins and a lot of high schoolers that they hadn't budgeted for and had to switch things around at the high school. So it seems like a fairly we're not alone in struggling with this uncertainty during COVID and all of the people moving to
Vermont.
to Vermont. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think there may be some legislative remedies too, in terms of, in terms of the census, and I've heard some rumblings about maybe making some adjustments because a lot of people are struggling with just, more students than they budgeted for.
Yeah, that would make sense. Okay. So here's that SU assessment, and it's up, but as we said before, transportation is now included in that line. And Ed and I were, poor Ed, I call him way too much, but I like to understand the numbers and what's going on. So the assessment includes the transportation, but we get a rebate from the state for transportation. So when you break it down, the SU assessment is made up of early childhood, which is up a little bit, about 43,000, special ed, which is up a little bit, around 59,000, and then transportation minus the rebate from the state is included in that. So it's a 9% increase, which includes all of those things. How'd I do, Ed? I get that right?
Yeah, it sounds good to me.
Yeah. It really is the transportation that's driving that.
It's driving it, yeah. Okay.
Christine.
Yeah, Scott, I'll go back.
Yeah, is that not the transportation credit? Or, I'm not sure what you just called it. Is that in real time? I didn't understand that. Is that something we anticipate?
It's something we anticipate, I believe, but Ed can correct me. He tries to do his best estimate.
So what that sounds like is it sounds a lot like special education reimbursement, and how it, for some years there was special education had been was being provided through the SU, but the home district was getting the reimbursements, and it was a convoluted swapping of.
Yeah, the SU will get the reimbursement.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it'll be cleaner that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Excess costs, these are services related to expenses for students with 504. And we do have some of those, so it's down a little bit, but we still need to budget for those costs. There's total supplies, which we talked about a little bit earlier. And it is, if you look at FY20, we did spend considerably less than what we budgeted, but that was based on, some of that was because we were remote for part of the year. And this is the total proposed FY, that should say 22, I'm sorry, 22 budget. Is $8,844,460, which is an increase of 2.34%, a difference of $202,154, and a good portion of that is high school tuition costs.
Yeah, high school salary and benefits.
Yep. Questions?
Thank you, Christine and Ed. That you guys are way ahead of the ball, and I just appreciate that. I guess not way ahead of the ball, but on the ball for sure.
We're trying to be as prepared as we can be.
Yeah, no, that's just, you guys have clearly done some hard work, and that's a good place for us to start.
Well, it helped that Katie got the service plan done early, and the SU budget is set, which is great.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Katie, again, another huge appreciation for the special ed budget not skyrocketing.
I tried. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very appreciated.
You're welcome.
Is there anything else for Christine and Ed on the budget?
Of course, you know, I know I don't have to remind the veterans, but it seems like, you know, the push really comes to shove when we start looking at CLA and tax rate and all of that stuff. But it's just good to know that this is the budget, and we'll just see what happens. You know, you'd like to think that they're going to hold some things harmless just to get us through this crazy time, but we'll just see. Those numbers usually come in around mid-December. Ed, mid to end of December.
They do, David, but I also want to make it clear that this is the preliminary budget. I mean, I anticipate there will be changes to this as we get better numbers for all of the things that we're making estimates for. So just, I wouldn't say that this is done by any stretch of the imagination. It will continue to get updates from the state on potential, how they're going to handle the whole FY22 statewide ed fund and all of that. But your budget, we put this together with an eye towards adjusting it as time goes on. A good example is if we get the announced tuition numbers for FY22 before, say, December 15th, we will take out the 2.5% increase that I've anticipated and put in the actuals, and that could go either way. So please don't think that this 202 is going to stay. It could stay. It could get less. It could get more. We just have to keep going with it and updating it.
And the salary increases are an estimate. You know,
Correct.
we haven't even negotiated this year's contract yet. So, you know, whatever.
So I'm going off of what the current teacher salaries are,
right.
And with a
Percentage.
guess at where they would go next year. So I will say that's a big thing that might change. I don't know where the negotiations are. They haven't settled, and until they settle, we won't really have a concrete number there.
Thank you, guys. I still think it's a great start, and I completely expect it to change.
Good work.
Scott.
Yeah, thank you. So one thing that Christine highlighted specifically was the phone system, or some numbers regarding that. And so what I see when I'm signing warrants is that we have obligations to VTEL because we're in Heartland, but we also have the so-called new phone system. I think David described that as a different First Light fiber
Carrier. Yep.
Yeah. So, but we still end up paying VTEL quite a bit, and I don't know if there's any way to.
Scott, to address that, we've had conversations with Larry Dower about that very thing, and we are trying to. What you're paying for is a lot of line charges, and we're trying to get away from those line charges or stop those line charges. But it's not as easy as it might sound. Where Larry anticipates that we're going to get it to be a lot less, and I think the numbers that Christine showed you reflect that.
They do.
So
yeah, it was. I mean, Ed and I looked at it. We actually had Larry on the phone last week because what we paid last year, I think, was upwards of $20,000, and Larry did say he thought we were going to be able to cut some of those ties with VTEL and reduce that. I think he said by about $5,000, right, Ed? Was that your recollection?
Yeah, that is my recollection.
So that's reflected. We cut that right out. So hopefully he's right or close.
Yeah, I don't mean to imply that it's easy. I just was trying to share.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Larry had the same point. You know, we're paying for this. We're not really using this service. So he's working on that.
Thank you.
Okay, if nobody else has anything, I'm going to try and keep us moving because we have a lot of work tonight. So Christine, you'll send us the budget so we can look through it on our own. And we'll continue this discussion at the next meeting.
Yes.
So Ed, thank you for coming. And unless
Thanks, Ed.
David needs you for something else, you
think
can
we-
hang out with
Thank you
us
very much.
or take off.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Ed. Okay. Christine, you're up again.
I'm up.
Do you want to break?
Let's see. No, let's see if I can present better this time. The window. I might have just done it wrong again. Can you see my presentation?
It's fighting you tonight.
I know you're frozen with your hand up in the air.
Every time. It's so weird. am I still, can you see my screen?
No,
I think I hit the wrong one again. Hold on.
but you're unfrozen now.
Do you select your entire screen or a window? What is?
I go window, but I don't know about Mac.
That's what I've been doing, but it doesn't seem to be working very well. I'll try again. Share.
There it is. You get
There it is. Okay, it's
There we go.
weird. Second try. I did the same thing. Weird. Okay, yeah, I did share this with you earlier.
Yeah.
And it's not too long, but I wanted to update you on some of the normal fun things we've been trying to do at school. We did decide to have the kids dress up if they wanted to, and the staff sure took part as well. And we had a ball. It just felt really, really normal, which I think relieved some stress and anxiety among staff and students. And it was a great day. So some creative costumes too. So we were impressed. We had a barbecue last week. We've been watching the weather, and Craig really wanted to do an outdoor barbecue. The kitchen staff has missed seeing the kids, so this was a way to, touch base, say hi, and serve a really great meal outside. Again, we followed protocols. Brittany and I and Craig, and Mary, I think we were all serving kids, so they didn't have to touch anything. We were the servers, but it went well. The rain held off, and it was just a great fun thing to do with the kids. Veterans Day, not the normal, but we were able to have Bryce Morency join us. He's a remote student, but he's been doing lessons with Jamie Bernstein, and he wanted to play the Star Spangled Banner, so we all joined at meet and were treated to the Star Spangled Banner, which was pretty awesome. He did warn us to turn our volume down before he started playing. It sounded great. It was pretty awesome. Just a couple of other things that have been going on. Teachers just finished up conferences for the most part. A couple teachers have a few left to go, but we had really, really good turnout. Roughly 90% of the families participated, and again, some more expected this week. So those went really well. I don't know if remote conferences are just more convenient, easier for parents. So
Isn't that really high? I mean, that's a big difference. Is that a big difference?
Usually in the fall we have a relatively good turnout, but not 90%. I mean, middle school is where we tend to drop off, and most middle school families participated, which is great. So we're pretty happy. The character trait for the month upcoming is begin with the end in mind. And Brittany did a recording and has been keeping up with all of the character trait things that we do with kids, and the wild card drawings are happening. They're just happening in classrooms. So we're trying to create as much normalcy as we can. But I just thought you might want to know we're working on begin with the end in mind, which is a really important trait, learning how to set goals and work towards them. And great news today, our new 7-8 math teacher, Mr. Michael Butts, started. And he comes to us from Texas. He was actually working in Windsor as the permanent sub this, beginning of the year. And we kind of snagged him. So he's comes with experience. He's been in the military. He's taught middle school math. Today was his first day, and it went really well. We're thrilled to have a math teacher with math background. So I'll keep you posted, but I think we really lucked out.
Yeah, you're gonna love him.
Yeah, he's great.
That's really fantastic news, and I think that I don't know how we lucked out at that level. That's awesome.
Yeah. So we did. I will say the staff, the 7-8 staff, really worked hard to create a plan that worked for the interim. But I think they're all thrilled as well to have a math teacher. So we've been working really hard, and most of you, I'm sure, experienced the first kind of practice remote day. Although we've had 2 other ones, those were a little different because we had professional development during those days for the staff as well. So we're not really full remote days. Friday was kind of a test run. Teachers got guidance late in the game on what the days needed to include, how much time, each content area, they need to instruct in. They did a really great job pulling together schedules and setting up meets, and there's a lot of moving parts, so it's complicated. But they will have the 23rd and 24th to really prepare for the week after Thanksgiving and beyond if that happens. But for the most part, it went pretty well. We heard some good things from families, and that's our goal, to make it pretty seamless, easy on parents, but with direct instruction going on from the teachers. And then for our remote afternoons, I think all of our schools, we've been working diligently to really make sure our support staff are being used to support children that need that support. And so we're close. We've been working as a team, Katie, Brittany, and myself, the teachers, and looking at data to help us make the decisions on which students really could benefit from more individual support from staff members. So we're making progress, but it's taken a while. I'll just give you some COVID updates. I included it here. David might want to add some later on, but just so you know, as I'm sure you all heard the governor on Friday, with the updated kind of regulations, I'll call them. So we had just surveyed the staff on their holiday plans at the end of last week, just to kind of get a sense of what people were planning and what we needed to do in terms of quarantine or testing. We had actually set up testing at Mount Escotney for staff for the Saturday after, like the Saturday of the Thanksgiving week. I'm sorry, the Saturday following Thanksgiving week, so people could be with their families and then test and come back on Monday. Mount Escotney was really working with us to set that up. But we have since canceled that because of the governor's regulations for holiday get-togethers. So we're going to survey the staff again because we just need to know. Obviously, we're encouraging them to follow the guidelines, but if people have already made plans and have family coming in from different places, we need to make sure the school is safe, the kids and the rest of the staff are safe. So we're putting that together now. The state has set up surveillance testing, which we are taking part in on Thursday. I think David and Angie are the deliverers of the COVID tests, and we had information on how to sign up today, and it'll be a self-test. That's my understanding, that staff will do, and then it gets all labeled and sent in, and the results are back within, I think they said 3 to 5 days. It's not that quick of a turnaround, but it'll give the state some information on, asymptomatic people, and it's just a wide, range all over the state. So they're looking for that information, and then I believe they're going to continue testing staff that want to, and this is voluntary, every month, I believe. But David can chime in if I'm wrong on that. Our maintenance staff members, I just wanted to shout out because many of our carports flipped over in the last windstorm. They came right out of the ground, and John and the crew have really spent time. They got sandbags, they're back up, and we know staff want to be outside with their kids, so we want to support that as best we can. So those are back up, and just a big shout out to our families because they are just super flexible, understanding. They're emailing with questions about the new guidelines. They want to do the right thing. So we really appreciate that. And I think that is my last slide. So I will stop sharing. And if there are any questions.
Thank you, Christine. That was good.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like the happy pictures.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Normal pictures.
Normal pictures. I will say it does. I mean, we've done the whole SU an incredible job, I think, of opening schools, staying open, following the guidelines. It's almost Thanksgiving. We're still in school, which is a huge deal, and we're so thankful and thrilled, and we want to stay in school. But people are seeing the numbers, and there's some anxiety. So it is nice to do normal as much as we can.
I heard a rumor about contact tracing.
Mhm.
That nurses would be.
They will not be. No, there was an addendum sent out today by Dan French. It's really the nurses will be asked to communicate, like if a whole pod needs to close. I think the VDH is busy contact tracing. There are a lot of cases, so whatever we can do to take some of that off their plate.
So it's communicating back to the.
It's communicating. Yeah, it's not doing the actual tracing.
Great.
They take care of that.
Yeah, I was concerned about it. I thought.
Yeah, so was
I
I.
was worried about.
Yeah.
The implications of it.
Yeah, I was happy to see the guidance come out later this afternoon, actually, with a clarification on that.
Great.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds a little more.
I sent it to Annette immediately. I forwarded it. So
it totally makes sense that they'd feel under, they're going to feel more stress. And I could see,
Yeah, I think the governor said Friday they were staffed to handle about 90 cases a day, and we're above that. So they're busy.
Yeah.
So yeah. So all right, that's my report.
Thanks, Christine.
Thanks, Christine.
Sure.
So, David, you're up.
Yeah, mine will be brief because Christine covered a lot of it, and and I think probably one of the benchmarks that the state will use in terms of being able to keep institutions like ours open will be the ability of the Vermont Department of Health and our hospitals to handle that capacity. I mean, it's not so much about transmission in schools, but it's about tracing any transmission that occurs in schools. So I think that's a good point. You mentioned the surveillance testing. Angie's been, heading that up. I'm sort of trying to partner a little bit with her, but she's taking on the bulk of it. That'll be on Thursday. And Christine, you're right. They are going to try to do a modicum of this as we go forward. They're thinking about maybe 25% of the schools every month, so it won't be 100%, but they'll just sort of keep up with it. And they might go back. They might be more inclined to go back to those who have higher counts in terms of asynchronous testing.
David, real quick, I thought I
Go
read today the letter from Angie that came from someone at the state that they were doing a quarter of the state a week so that they would get through everybody in a month.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I didn't. Is that what you heard, Angie?
I can't remember that detail, but if it's in the letter, it's
accurate.
in French.
Yeah, that's what I read as well.
That would make more sense. 25% a week, then they would get 100% of the schools a month. So it's yeoman's work. I'm still not convinced we're going to be able to pull this off, but Angie's at the helm, and I trust we're gonna make this work. We mentioned negotiations, and that's been a draw on our budget, but again, Scott, as your representative and the negotiating team, we have a mediation set up on December 9th to try to settle this. Mediation is a little less expensive in the online world. There are some advantages to some of this. We don't have to have the mediator fly in from New York and stay in a hotel and have all the expenses and have meals and the whole 9 yards. So that'll save both the association and the districts some money. And we're hoping we're down to just a few items that they're very tricky items. I mean, quite frankly, a lot of the items are related to Heartland. So we're going to just have to see what happens. And we've talked about those items in the past, and Scott's been a great advocate for the board's opinion. And we've got Pietro will be with us. He's our attorney, so he'll be part of that mediation with us. So I'm confident that will work out okay. The SU budget, we had that budget committee. Colleen Spence, as a member of your board, she's part of that committee. She showed up at that meeting, and it was.
I was there, Nikki.
Yeah, she was there. She did it. We like that. And much like the budget you saw locally tonight, I mean, it is what it is. There's not a lot of wiggle room there. I think, as we said, Katie Ahern did a good job holding sped cost to 2% or just a tiny bit under. The largest increase will be that transportation. And if you go to the
That's so
assessment,
miraculous that Katie Hearn piece.
yeah, the fact that she got that done and got it done in a timely fashion. And also, this is the first time too, not to be critical of it, it's a difficult job, but this is the first time in a long time that the service plan, which is absolutely all the services that will be offered next year, matches the bottom line of what we budgeted. So now all Ed's waiting for is based on that service plan. What are the estimated revenues? Because as we said before, Ed will take the expenses, he'll subtract those revenues, and that's essentially how he gets to your assessment. But I'm anticipating that, other than the transportation move, we're essentially in that 1% to 2% range in all of those categories at the SU level. And Larry will be proud to tell everybody on the 23rd when we meet as an SU, some of you will remember that discussion about centralizing the equipment and Larry promising that the equipment's expenses, he thinks they would go down if we could bulk order things. And sure enough, they've gone down about 30%, year over year. So that's a pretty big savings when you get right down to it. So Larry was right about that.
I think you just stole his thunder, though.
I might have. Yeah, I stole his. Yeah. Well, don't worry. He'll have
So we'll all have to look surprised and pleased.
He'll have his fancy PowerPoint. He'll explain that to us. And then the only other thing is we're having to make a few calendar adjustments on the fly. We had anticipated a week after Thanksgiving, which I think is going to work to our favor, both in terms of practicing the remote instruction and also giving that extra window of time in case people, for some emergency, have to travel or have to go somewhere. And so we'll be ready for that. The hospital is, even though we're not going to formally encourage folks to travel and then be tested, the hospital now every Saturday morning from 9 to 12, they are going to have an open drive-through site, so anybody can call. I don't know. I imagine there's your PCP or an 800 number that you can call and register for that testing. So if there are a few people who absolutely have to travel, then that's fine. But we're saying no exceptions, no excuses, no entertaining, and no traveling. It's a bummer of a time to be doing that, but that's the way it is. We do, and Angie has worked hard on the next week. The 23rd and 24th are staff development days, but I think Christine alluded to that. But that's really to get us ready for future integrated work, because that's been going pretty well, and also to get us ready for that remote instruction. And the other thing I think we have to keep in mind, and this is the last thing I'll say, is that Angie is coordinating about 150 kids in the remote world, and she has a staff of, I don't know, what is it, 8 people, Angie, 8 or 9? Well,
128 students is the current count. I have 5 classroom teachers and 2 special educators, and a slew of special education paraprofessionals supporting students with IEPs.
Yeah, so I think that's just that's something we can forget, and we need to note that. And we are going to work on ways. Angie's working with the administrators to start including some of those remote kids in, whether it's lunch bunches or just some social activities, or because the word Angie's getting back from those parents is those kids do miss their classmates, and that part of it is difficult. But we have to remember we're really running 4 districts this year, including our remote district, and Angie's done a nice job with that. But that's about it for me.
I had heard a rumor from some families that they were planning on coming back in January. What's the word on that?
When we set it up, we said that it would be on a semester basis, that you could decide to come in or go out in January. We've managed requests up to this point based on the capacity in the buildings. We've had requests for students to come out and to go go to the remote only program and vice versa. We've had to turn some kids down in some of our buildings because there's simply no space given the current distancing restrictions. So where I have surveyed, I started with the remote only families, surveying them. I know right now we have 5 students from Heartland that want to come back to in-person, and that's with only about 40 responses. And I have 40 kids. That doesn't mean, that's not necessarily 40 kids, it's 40 families. So that might represent 50 kids. So that means that our principals are going to have to be looking at spacing, and it definitely is going to impact that. And then the next step would be to send out a survey to the in-person families to find out who would be interested in remote only.
Okay.
It's going to be
Thank you.
it's going to be a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
especially if we have an influx coming back, spacing will likely be an issue. And so we'll have to figure that out. But
Katie?
And to chime in, so is staffing. We made a lot of staffing decisions for special education based on where our students were. And we're running into that now of students wanting to come back who needed support. Those people were reassigned. In some cases, absolutely completely reassigned to different buildings. And so it's going to take time. It's not going to be, it's not, whereas we're finding out, it's not even within those 2 weeks we originally thought would be a turnaround. We're looking at longer wait times too. So you're aware, full disclosure.
Yeah, I kind of expected that, and I'd heard from a couple families that were in remote that wanted to come back. So I had thought that this might be coming, and I appreciate the work that you guys are going to have to do on it.
Yeah.
So I have a quick question, Angie. Is it so if a family, families want to come back, and I don't have any idea if this is the case, but if a classroom that they want to come back to is full capacity, which again I don't know if that's the case in any of our situation, but what happens in that case?
Right now, if a student wants to come back and the classroom is at capacity, they have to remain in remote only.
Right.
We haven't discussed. I don't think we fully thought through the impact of it for opening it up again in January. It'll be a problem to be solved, but in January, our thinking, I speak collectively, is that we will accommodate every student as best we can. So I think that, we are locked into that 6-foot distancing because of our risk management. Is that correct, David?
Yeah, well, we've been locked into that, not so much because of risk management, but because we decided that we were going to err on the side of caution. But right now in phase 3, that 6 feet, at least K-5 moves
K-6
moves to 3 feet. But again, I think that's going to be the nuances that we're going to have to look at. You have not formally reached out to those parents yet to get an accurate sense of who might want to come back. Is that correct, Angie?
That's what I'm in the process. I sent the survey Friday.
Okay, perfect. I think that's what we're going to have to look at, and it will take some work. And Brittany's question's a good question. We'll have to see how we can serve those students. Well, and again, yeah, I think you're right, Patty. That would be a good topic for the reopening committee. Yeah. The interesting thing about the remote kids is that they've been sort of in these cohorts that are school-based, but those teachers have been teaching across the SU. So, yeah. So, we may be able to factor some of that in too, that if we have enough kids that want to come back, then maybe one or two of those teachers can go back, and then we find the space and figure out how to get them to where we got to get them. It'll be good. Hang on tight.
We'll figure it out. It may mean some changes in classroom spacing, but
Right.
we can figure that out.
Just
When do they have to let you know for sure?
Did you give them a deadline, Angie?
I did not give them a deadline. I am hoping to have more complete data. I mean, by December 1st, and we're going to start planning based on the data that we have. Up until September 10th, we still had families coming in and out of remote. So as much as we try to give a deadline, we can get the bulk, but families don't operate that way, unfortunately.
Yeah. And you have to remember too, our semester change is around the middle of January. So it's not like we have to snap back to this the day we get back from Christmas break. So, I mean, we've got a couple of weeks on the other side to work on this as well. So
The 22nd is the last day. January 22nd is the last day of semester 1.
And we may have some families that.
Sorry.
What'd you
Yeah.
say?
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I was just going to say, I wonder if cases continue to rise as they seem to be, if some of those families may rethink it. So I would hate for you all to put a ton of time and planning into it and then have it all switch around as cases continue to rise and families change their mind yet again. But I don't know how we plan for that.
Well, we may have some in-person families that choose to go remote as well because of the numbers. So
Yeah,
it could be a wash. We'll see.
So just for official purposes, I'm moving us to the COVID update. We're out of the superintendent's report now. And along those lines, we talked about potentially extending the school day. Are we still in discussions about that? Is the case rise causing us to not? Where are we?
Yeah, it's a good question. And Christine backed me up here, and Angie.
Sure.
But the simple answer is yes to both of those things. We're continuing those discussions, and the rise has kind of slowed those discussions down a little bit. And again, we have basically said to our staff that we would not do that either until probably when we make all of this semester change. It won't be till January. So we're giving ourselves some time to watch the case count, and we're giving ourselves some time to do the extra planning. The good news is that the feedback from parents and teachers, the union and association, is that people think that because of the difficulty with that afternoon win time remotely and the inequity of the access to that time, that most people would like to see an extension if we could do it. So it is clearly on the agenda. Did Christine and
I think you got it. You got it right, David.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I don't know about the other board members, but I'm getting a lot of questions about it, and some emails and stuff like that. And my response has been that I know that you guys are planning it. We may want to give a bit more of an expectation, as much of an expectation as that you can give. Because I think there are some families that are like, why aren't we close to full-time now? Like, I want to be full-time now. And so, and then there's the rising case count. So,
and I heard today that there might, it's a group in Weathersfield, a group of parents in Weathersfield that might be stirring up a petition for extended. So I think you're right, Nick. I think people are talking about it and wondering why we don't do it. But again, it's very hard to explain, and we're not going to get into it tonight, but there are a lot of complicating factors. And one of the complicating factors is that we want to safely keep these kids in pods. And that means teachers have to be with the same pod, or groups of teachers have to be with the same pod all day, which throws off completely your planning periods and your duty-free lunches and your intensive time. So we've got to get this figured out. My guess is to do it. It's probably never going to be back to a full day, 2:30, but I think we can add time to the day, and that'll help instructionally, and hopefully it'll help parents with some of the childcare issues.
yeah, that's what I've been telling all the parents that ask me, is that contractually we probably can't ever go to a full day because of the pod structure, and that's the expectation that they need to have, but that we're working on it.
Yeah.
And I think too, I mean, I've been getting more questions like a week ago, but I haven't gotten much of anyone saying anything in the past week.
Yeah, they might have-
because of all the case rises. So I think people are also a little understanding at this point around it. And also, I think everyone's just getting a little more nervous.
yeah.
So Patty put in the chat box that she was on a statewide union president's meeting today, and the physicians on the meeting are still recommending the pod structure. So
Yes.
I think the pod structure is working, and I think that the cases that we've had in the supervisory union and the contact tracing, the state's response to our cases shows that what we're doing is quite effective.
Yeah. And the other thing, Nikki, I think we can be proud of is that we've, right from the beginning, we've been 5 days a week. We don't do this. Your child is in on Monday, then they're out on Tuesday. Everybody's out on Wednesday, then your child's back on Thursday. We just never bought that. So I have felt, pretty confident that what we've got is every child that wants to be in school 5 days a week is there. But
yeah, I agree. I think I'm impressed that we pulled that off. And I also still want to give a shout out to everybody, especially the nurses.
Yeah, the nurses. Yeah, big time.
This is still working even with the case rise, and I'm knocking on every piece of wood in my office.
Did you see Sarah's question in the chat box too before you move on?
I did not. Did you, Nikki?
Are we adding, so Sarah's question is, are we adding a morning meeting question about multifamily gatherings?
Or what I mean is to the questions you answer when you drop your kids off in the morning. Are we going to ask people, have you gathered with another family?
I mean, it's, we've been talking about that, Sarah, and I don't know what to do because there are some families that transport other families' children to school because that's the only way they have to get to school. There are kids that travel home that way. There are kids that have childcare in somebody else's home. So, what do I do? I mean, that's essential. They need childcare, and they are definitely mixing homes for childcare, some families, because they have to.
Sarah, one of the things I did think of, though, is I think after the Thanksgiving break and after that remote week, we are going to have to, at least on the first day or two, we're going to have to ask, did you travel over the holiday? And we're going to have to figure that out because that was clearly part of the order. But I agree with Christine. I think on a daily basis, it's
tricky.
It's tricky.
It's tricky. Even asking, families are doing the best they can. And, now you're not even supposed to take your child with you to the grocery store. That's not essential. But what if you're a single mom and that's the only thing you can do? So it's complicated. But I'm under the thinking that we should survey our parents before the break and just, if you're going to do it, you do it. No judgment. It's just we need to keep our kids safe when they come back, and knowing ahead of time would be really important, I think.
Yeah.
And I think along those same lines, knowing ahead of time and also helping those parents do the right thing.
Yeah.
So because I didn't know about the Mount Escutney testing. And so asking parents to be honest and then giving them the tools to do it the right way, even though they're doing something they're not supposed to be doing.
Right. But again, if you've got a child flying in from out of state and you bought that ticket 2 months ago, it gets very tricky.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
Scott?
absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm questioning the, so maybe David or Christine can answer this. I mean, what's the deal with the 1 month, the 1 week that you're planning on staying remote after the holidays, when everywhere else we hear that 2 weeks is a good amount of quarantining, and so it doesn't sound like the plan really goes with the science that from Health Vermont.
No, it accommodates 7 days with a test, a negative test.
That's what we were thinking.
It doesn't accommodate the 14 days.
That's right.
The test takes how many days to get an answer? And
It depends. I mean, it's taking a little bit longer now, but it depends where you go for tests. I mean, it is something that we to be honest, we were hoping the governor would make a mandate for the whole state, and that hasn't happened yet. But would it be safer to just go 2 weeks remote after? In my opinion, it would be, but that's just my opinion.
My opinion too. Yeah, I'm sorry, the timing on the tests, I had it in my mind. I'm thinking of the rolling employee testing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that surveillance testing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's different. But on the other hand, Scott, it's like kids that need to be in school aren't in school. So it's really I mean,
It's a tough decision. What it will do, though, Scott, is it will, let's say somebody has to travel, or they bought the plane ticket, the kid's got to come home, so they've traveled. Instead of 14 days of quarantine, even with that remote week, they'll only have to quarantine for another, that next week essentially. So it'll be better. And some folks, I heard that Woodstock and that may have changed, but I heard that Woodstock is just going to go back right after Monday after Thanksgiving. And I have heard other people that have said they're taking the 2 weeks. And then you've got Two Rivers down in the Cavendish area that's saying they're not going to go back at all between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So people are all over the place, and it's just trying to find the right compromise to keep the kids engaged in their learning and everybody's safe. It's not easy.
Thank you for the answer.
I will say that I think that I'm kind of glad that we're giving people a week to do the right thing. Because I do think that there's going to be families that have to get together. But I would disagree with the 2 week, because for all the families that aren't going to get together, these kids aren't allowed to have play dates. They're not allowed to. My kids are going to go 2 weeks without any interaction. So yeah, it's going to be a long haul, and it's going to be a long winter. And I think school is going to be the one thing that these kids really look forward to. So.
And I heard today that this makes sense, right? That then we can anticipate after that 2 weeks, that we would have been out, let's say, that there's probably going to be another Thanksgiving spike, right? Because it takes 2 weeks for all that to incubate around those families that did get together. And I think we're just going to have to keep an eye on it. And that might be when the state says, hey, look, this is what's going to happen. But they really.
Then we'll be out for Christmas, so it's fine.
What's that, Beth?
Then we'll be out for Christmas.
Yeah, then we'll be out for Christmas. Exactly. Yeah.
And then we'll be looking at that semester end date of January 22nd. We'll be all spiked again.
Yeah. I mean, I think the kudos to the schools, because not just ours, but I mean, the schools are, they're masking, and they're in pods, and they're distancing. And that's why the transmission is not happening in schools. It's coming into the schools from these other kinds of social gatherings. So I think the schools are a great example of, if the whole society lived like we were living when kids arrive at 8:30, we'd probably have this thing licked by now. But people are just stubborn. And I read a stat today that 35% of the people still think that this is a conspiracy, and that this mask thing is a joke. And it's so crazy.
Yep. Okay. Is there anything else on COVID update?
I think we're good.
Okay. We did the budget. Okay. So the anti-racism task force. I'll give a quick update on that and let Christine and David chime in. So since I last gave an update, Ariel and Jameson from Righting Wrongs have come back from their exam period and re-engaged, and scheduled a meeting with the administrative team at the SU level. And that meeting happened last week. And that, just for some of you went through a meeting, it's just to kind of have an open dialogue about where the schools stand on racism, and what's said in that meeting is kept in that meeting, but it helps Ariel and Jameson kind of frame the concerns of our community and where we really need to go. So the administrative team met last week, and now we have a pool of teachers who also very much want to be engaged on the task force. So the plan, as far as I've seen in the emails, is that Ariel and Jameson are going to do another meeting with the teachers And then my understanding is that as soon as that is done, they're going to draft up a draft policy to bring to the anti-racism task force. And the anti-racism task force will take a look and decide how we expand our community engagement outside of that. Do you guys want to add anything?
That
No,
was perfect.
I think you hit it. No.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So I'm checking that off the agenda. Portrait of a Graduate's on here. I kind of feel like Portrait of a Graduate is now the strategic plan, and that we should just say we talked
Exactly.
about it and not put it on the agenda again.
Yeah, the board was supposed to vet the strategic plan, essentially. I mean,
Yes.
yeah, just in anticipation of the SU trying
Yes.
to adopt that next time. Yeah, I assume everybody's got it. I could pull it up on the screen. Let me know if you want me to.
Yeah. So so I emailed it out right before the meeting to the board members. So if you guys want to take a second and pull it up, or we can have David pull it up on the screen. So my thought here, I want to pull it up on my screen.
Excuse me, Nikki, is this different? Okay, that's exactly it. That's what Lori Brown shared. I just wonder if that was the same as what you shared.
It was in your
Yeah.
packet. It was in your
Yes.
packet. Yeah.
I forwarded, yeah. Oh, right. So it was in the packet. I also forwarded some additional documents that Angie pulled together.
Yeah.
So,
And the recommendation, just so we know, that this is the third, this might be the third and last board to look at this, is to really focus on the goals, and then that's the most important part for the boards. And then also the objectives are secondary. I wouldn't get into all those draft strategies and notes and, acronyms, and that's the weeds. I mean, I think it's really, do those goals reflect the direction that, we think we want to be heading in?
yeah. So my plan right now is to go through the goals and the objectives and make sure that we're hitting them, and we can ask questions of Angie, who was on the writing team. But I was also going to propose a 2-minute break for people to do jumping jacks, get a glass of water, or hit the restroom if you might need to. And then we'll dive into this, or start reading it if you haven't had a chance to read it. I see Angie clapping, so we'll see you back for, well, we'll go with 4 minutes at 7:30. We'll have everybody back on. So thank you guys. Stay tuned. Okay, we're starting to come back.
Slow but sure.
I feel like breaks are important, especially when you're about to dive into the weeds.
That was a great idea.
Yeah, it's also important that, I don't know, you guys know me, I need to move. So, knowing that we're about to dive into the weeds, I needed to get some chocolate chips and move, and I'm good now.
I love that chocolate chips is your go-to snack. That's fantastic.
I got my little pile.
That's my jam, Nikki, right there.
Yeah. The extra dark ones, the 70%. It also keeps me awake because I have not successfully time shifted yet. So, and I don't know when I'm going to successfully time shift because I would have thought I'd done it by now. Okay. Are we all here? Okay, I think we should dive in. I think all the board members are back, right? I see Colleen, Sarah Beth, Scott. Good. Okay. So I guess I'm going to read the goal because I'm the board chair, but reading out loud is not my thing. So we're going to see how this goes. So goal number 1 is student success. WSESU will improve students' learning experiences because the personal, educational, vocational, and civic successes of our students are increasingly challenged in our rapidly changing world. So this goal does come directly out of the portrait work. Students need to not just know content because content changes so quickly. And even the skill sets that students need are so wide and varied, and those skill sets are even changing quickly. So we need students to be engaged in their own learning and be able to be flexible, continuous learners by the time they graduate. So any questions on the goal? Okay, and I'm also going to take a step back. I'm channeling Elizabeth Burrows right now in that a ton of work went into drafting this from a whole committee. And so while as the board, we're responsible for approving it and making sure that we agree with it, unless there's something that you really strongly disagree with, we're not going to get into the wordsmithing, and we're going to hold faith that that team of people did a good job, and I know that they went back and forth and wordsmithed a lot. So I just wanted to put that out there. Okay, so to achieve student success, the objective 1 is WSESU will create a learning framework that guides the implementation of deeper learning, which is the portrait, from pre-K through 12, as evidenced by the framework presented to the superintendent by 2021. So that seems kind of obvious to me. Any questions? Angie, go for it.
Just a word about the time frame. So Mike asked us to have a time frame on there. So it is a rough estimate, and because if it says June 2021, it doesn't mean the work starts in May of 2021. It means we have up through June 2021 to get the work started and completed. So the time frames could be adjustable depending on our priorities as boards.
Thank you, Angie. Sarah.
I don't see any language in here about proficiency, and I know there's been such a, the last few years have been so much about proficiency. Is there something that's sort of replacing that concept, or I'm just curious about the that feels like a shift.
It's the learning framework is what will be that proficiencies will be feeding into the learning framework.
Okay.
but I guess when there's a lot of ways to look at proficiencies, but from my standpoint, I often think of proficiencies as related to how we test and how we do on the SBACs and those kind of proficiencies. And there is a shift away from that through the portrait work. People really felt like that teaching to the test was not beneficial moving forward, which I don't think that we specifically talked to the test ever, but that it was okay to move away from that. And it was okay to see different scores on the SBACs as long as our students were meeting our expectations of being more proficient at different skill sets. That, I don't know if I said that right, but okay. Are there any other questions about objective 1? We have 10 pages to get through, so I am going to kind of fly. Okay. Objective 2 is WSESU will create an assessment system supportive of the students' deeper learning by July 2022, as evidenced by the plan submitted to the superintendent. I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. Okay. And I do think that one of the keys in here, as far as the strategies go, is develop reporting tools and processes that tell the story. Because the assessment is not going to be, specifically, can this kid do 2 + 2? It's more of, is this kid capable of broader learning in math? And so we're moving away from yes, they can do this, and towards this is the story of how they learned to do this, so the kid can see how they moved through their own story, teaching the kid how to learn. Okay, objective 3. WSESU will create an inventory of extended learning opportunities for grades pre-K through 12 by July 2023, as evidenced by the inventory being shared with the superintendent. So this, David, you want to scroll down? That goal is that we don't just want students learning in school. We want students to be learning all the time, inside and outside school. So we want to provide additional opportunities. Any comments, feedbacks? Okay. So goal 2 is culture. And I will take another step back and say that when Battelle for Kids creates or helps entities create a strategic plan, almost always the first one is student success, because that's why we're here, all of us, and that's why they're doing it. And then the other one is culture, because culture is critical both to student success and to moving a school system forward. And so those two don't necessarily come out of our portrait planning, but they do match with what our portrait planning was. So goal 2 is culture. WSESU will strengthen and broaden the connections between and among staff and the core work of education in pursuit of greater staff engagement, well-being, innovation, inclusion, and resolve. So the idea here is that teachers that feel supported are more willing to go out and risk, to take more risks that might provide broader learning, and they'd be supported in that environment. So WSESU will develop a portrait of a WESU member and share that with the superintendent. So these are competencies of what we expect our staff to look like.
Yeah, and I think the idea there was, if our portrait includes empathy, then we want to define what empathy looks like in a staff member. So I think this is an important one.
I agree. I think,
Not that they're all not, but
yeah. No, I think that this is a really important one. So objective 2 is WSESU will design a plan to provide professional development about best practice collaboration as evidenced by the plan being shared with the principals by July 22. And I think this is bringing everybody up to speed on the way that we want our students to be educated, and giving those teachers those best practices.
yeah. And go ahead, Scott.
Scott didn't.
I was just getting a little feedback, but I also think that the pandemic and the way we're in these pods and the way people are collaborating and working together, I mean, I think it's, it's not exactly the representation that we're looking for, but I think it's forced us to really move into this Java-like staff collaboration faster than we might have under other circumstances.
Objective 3, WSESU will design a plan for annual Big Ideas Summit to explicitly build on the SU's annual calendar of a recurring process of innovation by July 2023. I'm super excited about this part because this is a requirement that our staff teach each other the things that went really well. And I think right now, we don't have as much of that. So this is really exciting. I will say that one of the changes that Sean Whalen felt really strongly about was the conduct a failure audit. It's not really an audit. It's more to look at where we've messed up so that we can improve. I forget, I used to have another term for that, but I lost it. But it's really diving deep for improvement, not necessarily saying you failed there and you failed there. It's more holistic.
Yeah, and I wonder too, looking at this process is really interesting and seems amazingly educational. And how could we incorporate student learning within this, of like having students observe and be part of this? Because I think them seeing other adults around them risk, succeed, fail is huge. And that would be really intriguing.
Good
I
point.
agree.
I don't know how you do it. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, there's, in the notes, there's the gift of failure, which is a book, and just to be able to incorporate some of those practices with the students, I think would be.
Well, and having it be a safe enough place too, that teachers can share their struggles of what they're doing and succeeding and failing on and with students, and to be able to share that process with their students. I think it could be really amazing.
I completely agree. Okay, so objective 4 under culture is WSESU will conduct a diversity audit. Again, the word audit is not meant to be punitive, to determine if gaps exist between SU practices and policies, the portrait, and a healthy culture. So again, this is just to look at everything to make sure that everything matches with how we actually want to be, not with the way that we've always done things. And I see this objective as kind of a out with the old. If it didn't work, get rid of it. If it doesn't match what we're trying to do, get rid of it. And I think that's really important, because I think that a lot of our staff is holding on to old ideas, and maybe just needs the freedom to push them away. But again, the word audit, I guess I would like to see changed. I'll bring that up at the SU meeting. Okay, any questions on culture? I know that a lot of you weren't part of the portrait, but you've heard some of what we've talked about happened during the portrait, and the goals of the portrait is really to create a more freeing school environment for everybody. And so hopefully what you saw in those two goals aims at what you heard. Scott, do you have something? Or
Yeah, I was just going to say that some of those dates in the objectives under culture, particularly number 2 had a says July 22. It's just making me think, because I'm thinking negotiations, what has to be accomplished to, if this is really going to be changing expectations that the district, the employer has of the employee. I may be wrong about that, but what do you think, David?
I think it does relate a little bit to our need to, expand those professional development days to some degree. I mean, we've had that conversation in negotiations before about, do we have enough time really to do that type of collaboration and planning around best practices? So I think it could have an impact, Scott. It won't come up this time, but I think as we start into the next section, it will.
Right. Thank you.
thank you, Wendy, for getting rid of the audit ideas, the continuous improvement review. Wendy, put that in the minutes. And then we can bring that up. I think that's a good idea.
Review is a good word.
Yeah.
Or assessment.
Yeah.
Evaluation.
Angie's got it.
There we go. Angie's got it. Okay, we're good. Thanks. Okay. Goal number 3 is student wellness and engagement. WSESU will further integrate the whole student into their education so that students increasingly see relevance, purpose, and connections between their learning experiences and their individual and collective lives. The idea here is that Battelle recognized that our students are struggling, but that we have some mental health issues in our schools and behavioral issues, and that some of our students are just really struggling with their lives. And so we want to find a way to make sure that our school educates the whole student, so that we teach kids how to find emotional health. So along those lines, draft objective 1 is WSESU will create and fund a student mental health and social emotional leader positioned to guide the SU actions for the SU school and classroom support of mental health by June 22. So the leader is just going to coordinate at the SU level. I say just, as John says, just is a 4-letter word. This person will be a coordination person to make sure that all of the SU schools are really making emotional health a focus for all of our students, which I think is important. I think we've done a good job of that in Heartland, but I think that having that go SU-wide would be good.
Yeah, we have, and Nikki, just so in these next few objectives, you'll see a position stated like this one. And keep in mind that it doesn't necessarily mean a new full-time hire, but it might be, reassigning somebody's work or re-engaging them in a different kind of work. It doesn't necessarily have to be a new hire.
And I hope it isn't. Okay.
It won't be.
Yeah. Objective 2 would be student voice and choice will be operationalized at the SU school and classroom levels as evidenced by a report to the SU board, June 2023. So students are more engaged when they can use their own voice. So I think that one's pretty clear. Objective 3, WSESU will institute flexible pathways for middle school through graduation as evidenced by board action on the proposals of these pathways. So the portrait definitely said that kids should have flexible pathways, which is also the way the state is going. And so this is just kind of merging those two directions and keeping that going and hopefully engaging our students more. And I don't see any comments, so we'll keep going. Objective 4 is WSESU will decide how to implement the concept of student advisory boards at the school, the SU level, and SU level so that representation of respective student population can inform how their education looks and feels as evidenced by implementation report in June 2024. So again, giving students more power will help them be more engaged and hopefully create a better education for themselves.
There are some good models for that out there too.
Okay, continuing to fly through this 10-page document. We're now on goal 4, information and communication. WSESU will improve the quality and effectiveness of its two-way communication so that the stakeholder trust, understanding, and support will continue to advance the education of and opportunities for its students. This objective came up because there was a recognized lack of communication between the school and the outward community. And then there was also some communication issues internally. Draft objective number 1 is WSESU will identify an information and communications leader for the SU to guide the work in this area. So this is just to make sure that all communications that come out reflect the values of the schools and the supervisory union. And I think the expectation will be that this person also teaches the teachers how to communicate more effectively. So there's a lot of expectations there. Objective 2, WSESU will identify a data leader to guide and support the informational needs of the SU. And so we still need to collect data so that we can continue to move forward. And I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I think one of the challenges in trying to free up our students' education, drilling down at data feels to me like you could also narrow it. So I think that there's some challenges. And I think this is a really important position, but I also think that there's some challenges in not putting too much weight on the data. That's my personal opinion, though. And my family's home. Okay. Objective, where are we? 3. WSESU will develop a plan for informing and reporting the progress of the strategic plan as evidenced by a presentation to the board. I think regular updates of the strategic plan are going to be critical. Okay, so objective 4, WSESU will develop a systematic collection of student interests as part of its regular collection of student data to inform educational programming and personalization of the students' learning experiences. I think it would be awesome if we could teach what the students are engaged in. Any comments? Okay, we're going to keep going. Last one. Objective 5. WSESU will conduct a review of all major sources and pieces of SU and building level communication to validate that it conveys the priorities and tone of its values today. So for those of you who weren't part of the portrait, I just feel like this is really important to bring up. They reviewed Battelle for Kids reviewed our student handbooks and found that our student handbooks were incredibly negative. Everything was written in a punitive language and that it wasn't welcoming. And so that's kind of the idea. I mean, that's one example of where this objective is really important, in that if we can we can make people feel welcome and excited to be part of the community and not feel like they're already being watched. That we might just have a more supportive community. So that would be the strategic plan in 25 minutes.
Pretty dense.
What was that?
It's pretty dense. There's a lot in there.
I love it. The language is very easy on my ears. I mean, it's so I like it compared to other strategic plan readings that I've been in on. Let's put it that way. I really like the goal number 4. It seems to go hand in hand with the recent electronic communication policy at the SU level. So that just makes sense to me. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think the committee did an excellent job too, and Angie's can take some credit, but in that notes column, not that you have to get into the words, but there's a ton of resources in there and links that are going to help us guide this work.
We talked about creating a simplified version of this for the general public, because it is a very complex document and it really is meant for lots of educator speak in there. And it really is meant to be more of an internal document, and that we can create. One of our first things we might want to do is create the strategic plan at a glance type, a document that is more user friendly for our communities.
I think this, there's the strategic planning process and outcomes highlights seems to be a start on that. That second page is a good outline of the goals and parts of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good start. And I think that was put together by Battelle, right, Angie?
Yeah. In consultation with Angie, you were part of that too, weren't you, or no?
Yes, I think Mike did an overview of it.
Yeah.
Just a good outline.
We'll work on
place to start with.
It's going to give us it'll give us a good framework for the next, I'd say at least 5 years, if not 7 years of work. That's why those dates all need to be adjusted a little bit, because some of them are pretty aggressive, some of them not aggressive enough. And I think the thing to remember here, and it's in the middle of this pandemic, it's hard to remember this, but this started with about 60 people sitting in a gymnasium, and I'd say we averaged between 45 and 60 community members that really did a lot of brainstorming, and all those notes, Mike had captured all those notes. So not only did that go into the portrait piece, but a lot of that was captured in this document piece, because probably about 30 to 35 people stuck with us through that strategic piece. So, I mean, it really is, I guess you'd say it's a collective document of a variety of stakeholders, and everybody won't agree with everything in there. And, teachers had representatives, but they're going to see, a lot of teachers will see this for the first time when we roll it out. But I don't think they'll be surprised, because, and I know Patty's on the line, but a lot of the stuff in there is stuff we've been talking about and doing anyway. So I don't think it's going to be a surprise.
Yeah, I would guess there's not, there's some stuff in here that's probably not new. I just love I love the body of work and having a plan.
Yeah.
Not that we don't have a plan already, but, freshening it up maybe, or revisiting.
Right.
Not to minimize it in any way. It's this huge body of work. But it's exciting to me to feel like this collective representation of our community came together and agreed on some ways to go.
Yeah, I think it was great.
Regardless of whether we meet deadlines or not, I just think it's great to have something to work toward.
Yeah. So while Nikki is, Nikki's back. Okay.
My relative.
We have a new participant. So cute. I love
Hi.
it.
One of our stakeholders.
One of our-
Yes, one of our stakeholders.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's going to happen next is that this is going to go to the SU board where it's going to have to be approved.
It'll be discussed on the 23rd, hopefully approved on the 30th, if we need to have two meetings, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was. And as many, not all of you are on the SU board, but as many as could attend, because this really isn't a plan for the SU, it's a plan for everybody. And so we really need to have everybody in on that meeting and part of the discussion and make it so that we truly own it. I personally, I know you guys were, while I was dealing with other things, you guys were talking about your impressions, but it's time, like we hired Battelle to help us revolutionize how we're doing education. And I think that this is an exciting document that really turns it over to the administrative team to really revolutionize what we're doing. And I'm really excited about it. And I hope that, I don't know, like in a few years, maybe our kids will just be like, this is amazing. Things have changed. And so I'm really excited and hopeful. So, okay. This is,
See you, Patty.
thanks, Patty. So we're gonna set the next agenda. I think I'm just gonna review the agenda real quick to make sure I covered everything. Okay, yeah.
Quick
Okay,
question.
so
There's a special SU meeting tomorrow.
Yeah.
yeah,
Is
that,
that something urgent or like, because I'm not on the SU board, but should I, like, the agenda
No.
looks pretty light.
No, it's light. It's very light.
yeah, it's
And very quick. I would say if we're there 10 minutes, but what that does mean is the ones who are on the SU board, which would be Colleen, Scott, and Nikki, if you could try to show up, that would help us get that done.
Yeah.
Okay.
6 o'clock.
Okay.
You've all got the link.
Yep. And we're not going to any sports, so that's not an issue.
Oh, end of that.
So
We don't have
okay, so let's set this next agenda. I'm going to go with the same. So we got the principal's report, superintendent, COVID, which just went seamless.
budget.
Budget. We don't need to do the strategic plan. Anti-racism. And that would do it.
Can we compare Thanksgiving menus?
Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
Cereal.
You want that as an agenda item? I like that.
Okay, is there anything
We're
else?
not with anybody. We're not, no one can eat together, so we might as well at least discuss it after the fact.
Yeah.
Now, are we going to meet on what are we, the third Monday?
Yeah.
So that would be the 21st. Does that work?
It would be December
21st.
Not going anywhere.
I know.
Okay.
Not going anywhere.
It's gonna be here, so.
Could be any day. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that we're good with it.
That's fine.
I'm just going to move that date right now, so you'll get a new invite.
Okay, great. When is the last day of school before Christmas?
Those are remote days in the calendar at this point, the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and then the break starts on the 24th.
Okay. Great. Oh, and this was one of those years where you really could travel because you had
2 weeks almost, or long.
Yeah.
Oh,
well.
We had a lot of great plans for, this was our 40th.
Dartmouth gave us an extra week off.
Yeah.
Wow. Not forever.
Do nothing.
This is not forever. We will get back to normal.
It will.
We'll all travel again.
Yes.
Vaccines are on the way.
I know, that was good news today. Okay, so we've got that. I'm looking through the radar list. For those of you who don't have it, it's community engagement, social emotional, engagement preparation and variety, special education, physical plant security, proficiency-based education, and processed. I feel like considering COVID, we're doing a reasonable job. But I do feel like it's important for us to keep those things in mind. Okay, so I would take a motion to move to executive session.
Excuse me, Nikki.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah. So I just wanted to not jump away from, I think it's really important what Beth brought up early in the meeting, recognizing our role in white supremacy in this forum. And I don't know how to, it seems like we need to continue to work on that. I mean, obviously we do. It's on our agenda. I'm sorry. Are we really okay with our meeting night being the same night that the select board meets?
No, I think that needs to change.
I don't mean to. That's kind of a jump of thought process there. I got many things on my mind, but it seems like something. You know, we keep having it at the same time of our meeting at the same time of day, the same day of the month. It's not so much what the current conflict is. It's just that it seems like there's room for improvement there, and I don't know exactly what that might look like, but
I think we tried to address that by having our forums and stuff when we could. I think those listening forums were really they were pretty well attended, and I think they were somewhat successful.
Yeah.
But now we can't do that. I suppose we could do one remotely.
Well, we did over the summer, right? It was right prior to the school starting. Yeah, that's a good reminder. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I don't know why I brought that up, but it's just something that a couple things on my mind.
Yeah, no,
So I would encourage everyone to read the link that Christine just sent.
That's really good.
Because it's really, and it's the same. I mean, this is, as a nonprofit, like, this is how we function. It's like a direct look in the mirror of, you know, how we function, and then how maybe it's not a welcoming environment for everybody. And I mean, one of the things is, you know, worship of the written word. We just spent 45 minutes worshiping the written word of this document, you know, and how is that welcoming to other cultures and other, like, how does that work? And so I think it's really, I would just encourage folks to read what Christine just said and just think about it a little bit, and just give some thought into how does our board function? How can we keep each other in check around these different topics, you know, and how can we recruit more people to participate in, you know, just coming to a board meeting, but also, you know, running for office. That's just, I think it was just something as a board we can try to commit to.
I agree. And thank you for Christine for sending that out. Okay. So should we have a motion to move to executive session?
Just
So move.
Okay. Beth? Second?
Second.
Colleen? Okay. So all those in favor of moving to an executive session to Further discuss budgeting. There was one other thing, but I can't remember.
Negotiations to some, you know.
Yeah,
You know.
negotiations. Yeah. So budgeting and negotiations. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, and Wendy, I'll let you know when we come out and who moved
Yeah.
to adjourn.
You read
Okay.
my mind.
Thank you
I
very
know.
much, Wendy.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Wendy. I did invite you to the next one. You're becoming a regular fixture around here. So.
Oh, I'll be sure to look for it in my mail.
All right, good.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks a lot, Wendy.
I don't think I need to stay, right, David?
No, Angie, this is going to
No.
be more negotiations and stuff.
Awesome.
You've had a
Good
long
night,
day.
everyone.
Good night.
Thank you,
Happy
Angie.
Thanksgiving.
David, turn off the recording.
Yeah, good.
Oh, yeah,
thing.
turn off the
Thank you,
recording.
Scott. Well done.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, we've forgotten that before, believe me.